My name's Steve from Crossroads Learning Network. This video is designed for upper middle school and high school level students that are seeking to improve their reading skill. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you like to read? Most of us, to one degree or another, do enjoy reading, and it's very simple for us to pick up a book we want to read and to enjoy it thoroughly. It can take us to places that we can dream of, and it can help us learn things, and it's fun, all right? I wish I could tell you that every book or chapter is going to be like that for you. It's not. There's going to come a point, you're already there I'm sure, where you're going to get a book assigned to you to read. You're going to get a chapter assigned to you out of a chemistry book, a bio book, oh heavens, not bio, of ancient history, something that you aren't really interested in. But you know what? Your job as a student is to read that and either write the paper or take the test. That's your job. Well, my goal today is to help you do your job better and to give you some ideas and tips to do that. Now, I have a friend that told me about a book not too long ago, and I'll show you the book. It is called How to Read a Book, and it's by a gentleman named Mortimer Adler. Well, this book has a lot of good insights into it. It's a little bit, fun to read. But it has some really good points. Now, when I read the book, or when I heard of the book, I said to myself, and you're probably saying the same thing, I know how to read a book. Do you? Well, hopefully you do. I know when I read through this book, it reminded me of some ideas, some tricks that have helped my reading experience over the years be much easier. I wish I could say I could watch a YouTube video and somebody would have told me about them, but that's not the case. I had to learn about them the hard way. So take this to heart. It might be a good thing for you. One of the key things is understanding that we deal with things better when we're familiar with them. I have another friend, and this friend is in the process of training for an event. He's training for one of these run, bike, swim events. And I can honestly tell you, a year ago, if he and I were sitting down, there's no way that he would have been thinking about doing this. He and I at that time both, if we would have run a half mile, we would have been on the ground, all right? But you know what? He decided he wanted to do this. He started to run, okay? Then he started to ride his bike. And do you know, just the other day, he did 20 miles on his bike, and it was nothing to him, okay? Wow, how did he do that? Well, let me tell you. He made up his mind that he could. And he did try to do it. He tried to learn something he didn't know ahead of time. All right? We read something that we understand or that's familiar, it doesn't take much effort. But if you notice that you start reading that chapter and you run across a concept that you don't understand, or you just don't want to read it anymore, what happens? All these bells and whistles go off. And you tell yourself, what does this matter? Is this ever going to help me in life? Will it help me get a job? What is it? Well, the reality is, again, it is your job as a student to do this. But it's not easy all the time. This brings me to a really, really important concept. Do you want to grow? Do you want to be more than you are right now? Well, you have to learn new things. By learning new things, things you didn't understand before, that's the only way you can learn other things, that you can grow, that you can become the person that you are meant to be. And I would challenge you to make up your mind that you can learn new things. What seems hard now, you can learn, and it may not be as hard down the road, but it's very important. Now, I want to give you an idea tip here. And I don't want anyone, like if there's parents out there going, oh, no. This is not by any means how you should read every book. So this, I'm not talking to the student who is lazy. I am not talking to somebody looking to get out of their work. Right now what I want to focus in on is a style of reading that is called pre-reading. Now, pre-reading has been known by many names, but one of the other one is skimming. It's when you simply look over the material quickly. Now, I want to be real candid here. If you do this, what I'm telling you, it will help you, especially if you use it as a starting point for your reading. But you will never gain complete understanding from pre-reading. It just won't happen. And so I would caution you here. Let's use this as a foundation, as a starting place. Now, pre-reading has several components. The first thing that you want to do is, with the book or the chapter, is you look at the table of contents. All right, simple enough. The front of the book, you read and see what's in it. If it's a chapter book, like a biology book, a history book, you look over the section and you read in the table of contents what it's about. All right. The next thing you will want to do is you will want to read the preface, the beginning paragraphs of that book or chapter. And then you will want to go through, especially if we're looking at a textbook, and you'll want to read the first and last sentence of every paragraph. All right? Now that might sound like, oh, really? Yeah, you really want to read through that, get those ideas. Then look in the sidebars, the facets, some people call them. There's little stories or little breakouts that talk about something pertinent to the reading. Read over those. Get a handle on those. Then look and see if there's questions. I know in a lot of books we're asked to read a section and there's chapter questions, for example, that we might be asked to answer. Read those questions first. Understand the question. What are they talking about? And then finally, oftentimes books will have summaries, especially textbooks, but some other books as well will have a summary of what that chapter is about. Now, just a little heads up, most every book at the end of a chapter, the last few paragraphs are a summary of what was discussed in that chapter. So it's a very useful skill to be able to do this, what's called pre-reading. Okay, but pre-reading isn't the end of it. Now, sometimes that's all the time you'll have, and quite frankly, for some books, that's all you'll want to do. And I'll be really honest with you here. I'll fess up. The book by Mortimer Adler that we're talking about, I pre-read it. Yeah, it's okay to do that. You can get the important points that you want to communicate or want to understand. But you'll never again, I repeat, come to a complete understanding of the material. That you actually have to read the book. Now, that's what I want to talk about next. When you read the book, don't think that you're going to get it all. And I think that's a big mistake. We talked about before, nobody knows everything, and you're going to run into something that doesn't make sense. Do this for me. Put everything out of your mind when you look at your book. Pick up the book and read it. Read that chapter. All right? Now, what I don't want you to do is focus on the stuff you don't know. So you're going to read along and you get the blah, 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 blah. Okay, skip the blah, blah, blah. Keep reading through it and find things you do understand. Anchors for you to build a foundation on. That's what we're talking about here. So read the whole chapter. Find the things you do understand, the things you get. Now, when you've done that, pick up your pen or pencil, okay? And this is really important. This is a very active process. You pick that pencil up and you reread that chapter. You reread it and you note the things you don't understand. Okay? Now this is very active. You have to do this. You have to really get into it. You read with a pencil. You talk about different note-taking methods. When we talk about taking notes, and this is probably one of the top 5 skills a student needs to master, is note-taking. There's various ways of doing it. For lectures, I really like Cornell Notes, and I would encourage you to Google Cornell Notes. There's a lot of good information out there on them. Excellent way to take notes from a lecture. But what I want to focus on is taking notes from a book or textbook now. Now, do you remember as a kid, a little kid, you were taught these wonderful outlines, you know, with Roman numerals and big letters, little letters, all that? Well, this is a good way for you to take notes from your book. You take them as they come in the book, but you address each concept as it's coming and presented in the book. Now, an interesting idea that the author brought out in the book was this, that, and I'll read this here, a term is not a word. Think about it for a second. A term is not a word. It's an idea. It's a concept. So let me, before we get too deep into this, let me ask you a question. Pretend for just a minute that you're in the year 1865. And you're sitting there doing your whatever you're doing. And somebody brings up a term that you've never heard. And let's say that term's air travel. All right? Air travel. Now, if you're in 1865, you and Honest Abe are going, what's air travel? You got no clue. But you and I know what air travel is. The term air travel, to me, means something like this. I get on a plane, an airplane, and I travel from one city to another city. Further, I get a really kind of interesting yucky bag of peanuts or pretzels. I get a soda from a cart that rolls down the middle. If I have to use the restroom, I have to wait my turn because there's only, like a few of them and there's a lot of people and you watch the lights and, all that good stuff. And one final one that I've really come to be aware of, airplane food just usually isn't the best. But we understand this idea, this term is more than a word. It's experiences that we've had. It helps us, a term helps us succinctly or simply put a big idea into a word. Okay? You got to understand what the term's talking about to be successful. Okay? Now, we have talked about several things, and I just want to highlight them. I hope that some of them are things you can grab onto. I hope that some of them are things that you can use. But I want to go through them for you one more time. The first one is, if you don't learn something that you don't already know, I hate to say it, but you're never going to grow. You're never going to grow. And we want you to grow. We want you to be better students. We want you to be better people. Grow. Learn something new. The second point was that pre-reading is a very valuable skill. And it's not the end point. It's not where you should stop. But pre-reading is a great skill to learn. And it can help you a lot, especially when time is an issue. But it also is a good foundation element. The next one is read a chapter through just without worrying about what you don't understand. Read it and hook onto the things you do understand. Next, come back and reread the book with your pencil, pen, or highlighter and take down notes. Capture the ideas in an organized fashion of the things that you don't understand. All right? And then the last point we made was you have to understand the term. You have to understand the idea behind that term. And if you can read through something and you ask questions as you read about that idea, and then you answer those questions, you're going to actually come up with test questions and the answers for them. I pretty much promise you. Look for the idea behind the terms. Look to understand the concepts. Now, I really hope that you have enjoyed the last few minutes, that you have gotten some good ideas. But like with anything, any new thing, unless you practice it, it's going to be really hard. The more you do it, the easier it will get. My challenge to you is start adopting some of these skills if you aren't already. Do it for 3 months. I pretty much promise you, you're going to come to that point at 3 months and say, why on earth wasn't I doing some of these things beforehand? Because this is so much easier. Okay, so try it. Also, feel free to email us, contact us, and let us know if you have any questions. And tell a friend if they'd like to see this video. Pass it on. Feel free. That's why we're doing them. But thank you again. I hope that this has been of some help to you, and I wish you much success in your learning.